Not a nuclear war, not a biowarfare, not a global recession, nor a collective collapse of governments. What brought about these apocalyptic scenes were a collection of cells, microscopic in size, invisible to the human eye, but potent enough to bring the 21st century world to a grinding halt within a matter of weeks. The novel coronavirus brought in its wake a crisis, the kind the world had never experienced before.
Coronavirus has reached the UK.
The first confirmed case of novel coronavirus reported from Kerala.
The coronavirus has claimed the lives of more than 1 million people.
History will remember 2020 as the year no one would want to revisit. A tough year would be a mild way to describe 2020. The global pandemic touched every corner of the planet, upended individual lives, isolated countries, impacting every workplace, shuttering down businesses, isolating individuals like never before, forcing people to rethink every aspect of their lives, from the mundane to the special, and brought to an end the lives of over 1.7 million people till now. In fact, the numbers continue to rise even as you watch this. So how can there be lessons, you say? But here is the thing. Nothing but a crisis teaches the best lessons. And so the first lesson is to not waste a crisis and instead relook, rethink and reprogram the way we humans exist in the 21st century. From the world of science and vaccine development to healthcare systems, from political leadership to business management, from rehashing how to work, learn, live, to shifting the perspective both at an individual and global level, but mostly relearning that singular actions can have global impact, and that the solution that works for one is the only solution that works for all. 2020 turned out to be a teacher of a year, full of lessons to learn.
One of the most essential wisdom 2020 imparted was something the world knew all along, but needed reinforcing. Simply put, science rules. 2020 was the year when everyone from conspiracy theorists to global leaders realized science can provide the answer. And science can protect and heal. In December 2019, when China announced the existence of an unknown strain of viral infection running through its population in Wuhan, the world knew nothing about it. Not its DNA, where it came from, whom it affects, nothing. One didn't even have a name for it. But by early 2020, Professor Zhang Yongzhen and his team had mapped the first complete genome of the virus that came to be known as the SARS-CoV-2. Fast forward a few months, and scientists and global pharma had already started experimenting with various combinations of vaccines to see what could kill the virus. While the global COVID-19 toll hit the millions, doctors across the globe experimented in their own right. Handling droves of sick patients without a fixed cure in hand, combination drugs, experimental therapies, everything was given a try. Data was collected and new lessons learned. Lessons which helped control the havoc the virus wreaks within a human body. By the end of 2020, science delivered. Vaccines, not singular but in plural, vaccines that have been designed and manufactured in record time. Never before 2020 was a credible vaccine ever delivered in such a short time. "2020 taught how science can bind the world together, how cooperation and sharing of scientific knowledge helps humanity fight a global enemy."
Lesson number 3 from the year 2020 would be the old adage every family doctor on a house call would espouse, unless of course one had an apple every day. In a world where family doctors on house calls have been relegated to the past, COVID-19 put the focus back on what that departed breed used to preach. Prevention is the best cure out there, because what helps keep the nasty virus at bay are the simplest of things: masks, isolation and social distancing, sanitation with something as basic as soap and water, and a human body's own defense mechanism. And what keeps the body's immunity in top form isn't found at the chemist shop, but rather in the kitchen and the bed. Good nutrition and restful sleep. 21st century India and other parts of the world include vast swaths of humanity who still struggle to access these basic requirements. They still struggle to have enough to eat. They struggle to have a roof over their head. A restful sleep and a full stomach is not a given for many tens of millions across the world. And 2020 refocused the need for governments everywhere to return to the basics. The need for equitable welfare states that care for one and that care for all.
Nothing defines a good leader than one who can outmaneuver a crisis, especially if the crisis is a global pandemic. 2020 posed the trickiest for countries and their leaders. As COVID-19 cases piled high in countries across the globe, one thing became clear: how well a country managed its COVID curve depended on who was leading the nation. And who was listening to who? WHO, the World Health Organization. In March 2020, New Zealand, under Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, enforced a systematic, well-thought-out, 4-level lockdown system to manage the outbreak. The infection was quickly brought under control, and its success allowed a relatively quick economic bounce back for the nation. At the other end, US President Donald Trump deemed a nationwide lockdown unnecessary. He insisted business interests be prioritized and largely ignored the advice from his medical and scientific experts. The result? 2020 ends with the United States of America leading the world in infections and in mortality. As the year progressed, India came from far behind and took the second spot for most number of infections. one of the strictest lockdowns in the world, did not help, as poor planning and inconsistent implementation saw the virus spread all over the country. The virus infected more than 1 crore Indians, and the economy has yet to recover. 2020 leadership lesson: to be a leader and listen to the experts.
It is natural to be concerned about nature, and then naturally do nothing much about those concerns. 2020 changed that because the COVID-19 pandemic showed that nature rules. The pandemic-induced lockdown cleared up the air and got rid of the noxious fumes of industrialization. And suddenly, lo and behold, from flamingos to the Himalayas, nothing was hazy anymore. So the viral good news was that reduced human carbon footprint was immediately showing positive changes in the environment. So the 2020 lesson on nature: even a limited time cut down on emissions can naturally clear the air. So longer weekends and working from home should be second nature to development.
Men and women learned a lot in 2020. Many men took up baking, so did many women. How to bake that banana bread from scratch is no longer a mystery. How to fry up quality samosas from potato up can be done with eyes closed. How to make a sourdough bread for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Heck, women and men even learned how to make the sourdough starter from scratch. But behind all these expertise was perhaps the granny wisdom. The art of creating magic with nothing. 2020 was all about learning to do without. Women and their opposite numbers slowed down. Men and their partners learned what was important. End users became conscious consumers. No shortcut, no jugaad in the Indian context was of any value if it was not shared. Everyone learned to do without.
If learning to do without things you never needed in the first place was fun discovery, being forced to beat loneliness as the world social distanced and isolated was a harsh lesson. Young people got back to reading, even books. Busy people worked from home, those who did not lose their jobs. But the lack of routine, forced isolation, sudden curtailed freedom took a toll. Almost 10 months into the pandemic, although life has resumed some of its routines, the new normal has ensured grand social gatherings remain a thing of the past. What 2020 meant instead was to take celebrations online, be it an enthusiastic virtual party or a quiet Zoom catch-up session with a close one. 2020 taught one how to re-evaluate isolation, beat loneliness and talk more about mental health.
disrupted lives need the comfort of mass entertainment. Confined indoor, 2020 taught us to entertain ourselves, but mostly through our gadgets. Across the globe, musicians, artists, actors collaborated to take their art online. So be it Broadway shows or the Philharmonic symphonies. Everything shifted online. OTT platforms became the new go-to app for entertainment. Even Bollywood shifted some big releases to these streaming platforms.
History will remember 2020 as the catalyst year that changed the way we work. Shifting online wasn't something every job profile allowed. Those privileged enough to do so learned to work remotely. Others struggled. Jobs were lost, careers changed. Some essential jobs fought the virus up front. Some workers realized their jobs couldn't withstand the onslaught of an invisible viral force. Others reprogrammed the way they functioned. Even the physical dimensions of the workplace stood permanently altered. Only the Industrial Revolution had disrupted and redesigned how and where humans worked to such an extent. But the COVID-19 virus ensured close proximity at workplace was a thing of the past. And 2021 will see humans relearn work culture and redesign workspaces all over again. Till the year 2020 came around, 2020 had to do with vision. When eyesight was normal, then it was said that the person had a 2020 vision. But the year 2020 was a whole new cup of tea. The first couple of months were spent looking at China, at Wuhan. But then the virus was everywhere and no one had the time for anything else. The next 10 months across the world, everyone kept looking over their shoulder, trying to spot the virus. But through the entire year of 2020, there was one underlying vision, that of hope. It obviously springs eternal, and in the initial days, if there were straws, they got clutched.
View this the same as the flu. When somebody sneezes, I try and bail out as much as possible.
But as the year progressed, and humans, who are good at adapting to situations, began to see hope everywhere they looked, even when they were actually being blind. So while 2020 was certainly not about a 2020 vision, what people chose to hope for was hope. And that itself gave hope that hope exists. Now, if that's not 2020 vision, it certainly is the vision of the year 2020.